Okay. Well, Nick, let's do this thing. I do see a couple folks kind of coming on as we're talking, so we'll just kind of go with it. Let me we'll first introduce the folks speaking tonight. I'm Sophia Guinness. I'm with Metro Transit's Community Affairs group, and I am helping with the Blue Line. Nick, do you want to go ahead?
Yes, welcome everybody. I'm Nick Landwehr. I am Director of Engineering Design for the Blue Line project. So happy to be here and have a discussion.
Thanks, Nick. A little bit of housekeeping for everybody to begin with. One, we are recording this meeting. So if you know anybody that wasn't able to attend and they want to listen in later or provide feedback, it'll be available online. And then kind of the format of tonight is Nick and I are going to start out with a short presentation to kind of ground everybody and where we are with the project. And then we're going to do this quick interactive survey with folks on the call. It's kind of a way to just give feedback in real time. If you are interested in it now, the website is there. It's menti.com, and it'll prompt you for that code that is there. That will become active at the end of our presentation, and we'll have that information up again. But for those of you that want to get that up and ready, I just wanted to let you know it's available. After we do that, we'll also have plenty of time for discussion or questions. Feel free, as we are giving the presentation, to ask your questions in chat as we're going. If it's related directly to what you're saying, we might catch it and just answer it as we're presenting. Otherwise, we'll come back to it right at the end, and it'll be there ready for our question and discussion portion of the event tonight. Also, when we get to that portion of our evening, feel free to use your raised hand feature. It's in the reactions tab right on the top of your screen. And then you can ask your comment verbally as well versus writing it. So there's multiple ways to participate with us tonight. I'll also mention the questions that we're asking you in the Mentimeter are also available online right now. So if you don't want to do it during the meeting, if you want to think about it and come back later, we have those questions online through the end of the month. So just kind of giving a flavor of what we're up to. So I'm going to do a little bit of a project overview. Nick's going to talk about kind of the routes that we're looking at, where we are in that process and what kind of the next steps are. For this call for both our routing between Target Field and West Broadway, as well as West Broadway versus 21st from Washington to Irving. So that's kind of that, and we'll leave you with some passing. If you have folks in your community that you know wanted to hear, we have a couple other dates ahead of us next week that you can let your neighbors know about. So we'll end with that. So to kind of dive in, to put everything in context, the Blue Line extension is part of our overall Metro network. So single seat ride all the way from Brooklyn Park, down to Mall of America Airport, all that kind of stuff when this line is constructed. It also gives you access to our entire region of Metro networks. So really part of connecting the community and providing equitable transit solutions to folks. Many of you probably joined us for this process, which was identifying our initial route. We spent, said the year there, but it was almost closer to 2 years that it took us to kind of get the route that we have today. We're now in this period where we're going to be going to dive in to our environmental review. We have a little bit more information about that coming up. And really advance the engineering. We have kind of conceptual level stuff ready to go and ready to show and ready to talk to you about, but we got to do a lot of more work, ask a lot more questions, get a lot more detail. So that is the next kind of couple years ahead of us. There'll also be things like station area planning, kind of going beyond the rails, as well as kind of seeking approval steps from our city partner, something called municipal consent. After that, we still got to make plans ready for construction. You go from a set of engineering plans that are maybe like about that big to a set of plans that are taller than me. I'm 5'2". Well, I'm not that tall. They still get even taller than me. So it takes a lot of detail to get to construct a project like that, like this, and then a couple years for construction. It's about 3 to 4 years for construction. So that's a little bit overall context. And in where we are today, we're getting really ready to kind of kick off our environmental documents. And there's a couple steps in that. We'll spend many times in the community kind of talking more about these documents in depth. You can always reach out to staff to ask questions about it. But right now, we're really kind of getting ready to prepare what's called a supplemental draft environmental impact statement. This project had done our environmental documents, but then we changed things. So now we have to go back and analyze those potential impacts, look for ways to minimize, mitigate, reduce basically our overall impacts. So we'll produce a draft document that will be available for comment as well then as a final version. So it's kind of a team effort, play by play, between the work that Nick is doing and developing to the work that our environmental team analyzes. So they both feed into each other. So kind of what are we doing here today in that overall step of the process? And really the main part is this last bullet on this slide. And sorry to look over there. My slides are there. You all are here, which is we want to make sure we have all the pieces that we need to study in our environmental document. So your feedback today and throughout this month will help inform what is in that document. Do we narrow options? Are there things that we're missing? That kind of stuff. Many of you may have seen basically the options between West Broadway and 21st that we rolled out kind of in the November timeframe of last year and had some community conversations then. And then we kind of went through what route are we on, West Broadway or on Lowry. So today is really to re-engage in that discussion, kind of give an update on our work, and start to continue that path with you. We're not making a decision which one in this immediate time, but it's really kind of continuing that discussion. Same with for our routing between Target Field and West Broadway. We, through a lot of process, have some options to study, and Nick will be talking more about that with you in a second. Kind of like I said with the environmental steps, part of producing that supplemental draft environmental impact statement is that we will take these designs that we're talking about today and compare multiple solutions, their benefits and impacts, and that'll help inform our analysis as we kind of get to this decision point. I'll always want to mention, like I said before, there's comment periods on all of those, so more to come. With that, I will turn it over to Nick to kind of walk through the various technical options.
All right. Well, thank you, Sophia. And for those of you that just jumped on to the call here, I'm Nick Landwehr. I'm with the Design and Engineering with the Blue Line Project Office. And so we're going to be representing or showing some of the work that we're doing and options that we have along the corridor that are open for consideration. And this is part of a conversation. We want to try to use some design work that informs our environmental work, but we also need to and welcome input from the community and this discussion. So as we're pulling together this information, a lot of this is to show you the work that we're doing, so you can understand kind of where we're coming from, where we'd like to be, but also to hear your voices on this. So the first area that we're going to look at here is from Target Field Station up to West Broadway. So just to reset ourselves a little bit, the project, earlier this summer, we recommended the route alignment that went from Target Field Station up to Brooklyn Park using West Broadway and County Road 81 as the preferred route. But with that, we also have some areas where there's a few options. So what we're looking at today and for discussion are this area here, Target Field Station, which is down on the lower right-hand side of this, where those arrows meet. So this would be the Blue Line extension. So where the Blue Line comes from Mall of America up through Minneapolis into Target Field, we're the extension of that. Well, this is where Blue Line would continue through. So we're looking at a few options of how we get there, and we wanted to make sure that we're refining these as we go into that environmental study, and so we can focus what that study is here. So the routes under evaluation here are in the purple. On the left-hand side is the Lyndale Avenue option. So that has a couple different, there's kind of a triangle with some dash lines there, either coming off Target Field Station, going down Folsom Memorial Highway and turning on East Lyndale, and then connecting up to in Lyndale on that alignment. We show a station area just south of Plymouth Avenue. So if you're familiar with that area, V3 is just starting a development in the building right there in between, just south of Plymouth, and so that station would be located in that area. It would continue up Lyndale Avenue and connect to either West Broadway or potentially to 21st, and we'll talk about that section after we get through here. The other option that we looked at and considered is the West I-94 option, which is shown in green. So again, that one, it follows that same route out of the downtown area, and then we cross 94 and then skirt the neighborhood just to the west of 94. So just in between the ramps of 94 and that neighborhood, come up and then connect in with the West Broadway option. And then the third option you see here, there's a couple different dash lines there. So there's, maybe some variation that can happen in that alignment that we looked at, but that's the east of 94 option, or folks that have referred to it as the Washington Avenue option. Although this option doesn't spend a lot of time on Washington Avenue because it's very difficult to get through all the development that's in downtown from Target Field Station through that downtown area and get to Washington. So have to bear with me. I have I think somebody's delivering a package. So if you can hear a dog in the background, it's a golden retriever attack dog, not really. So the east of 94 option is Washington Avenue option. We come from Target Field Station, we follow up 7th, and then we would turn on Oak Lake which becomes 10th. As we can't come through 10th, we make a quick turn under the 3rd, 4th viaduct, and then we show a couple different options there. The one option that kind of veers off diagonally towards Washington, trying to get to Washington sooner, shows quite a few property impacts there, and it really isn't a prime, but we wanted to show, here's about as quick as we could get to Washington and what are the impacts. And so there's the Twin Cities International School in that location that would be affected by that to get there. The other option that we're showing along here more skirts the right along the 3rd, 4th, the ramps there that go north onto 94, and just skirt along the edge of 94, kind of behind the properties through there, with a station showing just north of Plymouth Avenue. And then we'll continue up. As we get a little bit farther north, there would be a structure in that area that went over 17th and then came up and would cross 94 either at West Broadway or at 21st. So those are the three options that we're looking at. So as we're evaluating these, we've come up with some criteria to look at based on right-of-way impacts. So what is the overall width of right-of-way that available to us to work within? What would be the level of acquisition needed through there outside of that right-of-way? Whether there would be full acquisitions of properties, partial acquisitions of properties, or just maybe small strips that we would need to work through there. So how can we minimize that need for property takings and acquisition? We want to reduce the impacts to community assets, to key buildings or parts of the community, whether they're schools or businesses, apartments, churches, things like that. And we also want to reduce the impacts to business operations. How can we work with those business operations and be sensitive to how they're accessed, how they get in and out, and how we keep customers going to them. Transit effectiveness is obviously another key. We're putting in a high frequency, high volume transit amenity here. So we want to make sure that it's serving the community. So we want to look at what the proximity is to the businesses. We need to get it to where the riders want to go and where they are. So the businesses, the residents, the community assets that we've identified, station accessibility to make sure that you can get to this alignment easily, whether it's by walking, biking, riding, rolling, or other transit, connections to other transit resources, buses, BRT options out there. Land use and economic development is another one. What is the compatibility with the project, and does it meet our anti-displacement objectives of this alignment? We want to build it for the community, and we want the community that's there to be able to continue to be there and enjoy it and benefit from it. We want to look at redevelopment potential, or if there's vacant or parcels out there or impacted parcels that would be good for redevelopment with the project. And also, we need to look at increased or improved non-vehicular access to businesses along that corridor. Operational considerations is also another key. We need to make sure that we put the light rail in there and it does operate efficiently. Folks want to have something that's fairly speedy, that's efficient to get to, and it's very direct. So we'll look at those light rail operations there. And also, in many cases here, we're operating within existing roadway right-of-ways. So you need to take into consider traffic operations, how the intersections work, how the light rail fits within there, how we can keep intersections open and that access available. And then compliance with street objectives. For instance, here would be compliance with the city of Minneapolis's plans for multimodal transportation and their guidelines also. So these are key. As we look at each one of these, we've tried to put together a bit of a scoring measurement here that we can rate it, and this is really for us to take a look at it and work with the community. But we've taken an initial stab at each one of these to give it a scale, a rating scale, and with the green basically tells us that it really achieves the best on this category. So that's where the indicator scale would be on each one of these categories in each one of these route options. And then as we go down the evaluation scoring criteria, it starts sliding over to through the green to the neutral category in the middle, and then as we move more towards the red portion, it's maybe not performing quite so well, or to the point where the results that we're seeing there or evaluating really wouldn't be acceptable based on the project principles and the evaluation criteria that was shown. So as we look at these three different options we just looked at, this is our initial look at the scoring criteria, and really this is where we'd like to have a discussion with the community as we go through here on each one of these. But these are open for, if some folks don't agree with it or want some more discussion, we're happy to have that discussion or listen to why they don't agree with it, and if they could give us some basis for that, that's very helpful. So as we look through here, just for example, on right-of-way impacts, as we look at the Lyndale option, it's fairly neutral with the right-of-way impacts because we can stay within the initial street option. Maybe the west of I-94 option has a little bit more impacts with some of the right-of-way, some of the properties that would need to be acquired for that option, and the same with Washington Avenue. And you can see how we go through each one of these evaluations graphically through here. One thing to point out at the bottom here is as we go through and look at Lyndale, for street compliance and street objectives, you'll see the not applicable on the West 94 section because a lot of that is outside or not running within an existing roadway. So that's why it wouldn't be applicable to those street options. So as you get down to the bottom, you'll start to see where we're thinking a little bit as we've looked at this. So Lyndale, we're recommending as staff to evaluate this further. The west of I-94 for the impacts that it has and for the value it would be, it would give. We're really not recommending that one to move forward, but we want to have that discussion and talk about those reasons. And then the east of 94 options that was shown, we would also continue to bring that forward into our environmental work. So I'm going to stop there for a second to if there's any questions on that, and before we go into basically the same thing and talk about the options on 21st. So as we are there any outstanding questions here on just that evaluation or the routes that we're looking at?
So Nick, we're not seeing anything in chat, but
Okay.
definitely we'll have a large comment discussion period at the end. So
Yep.
And just take this pause to also encourage people, feel free to start adding your questions now so that we have them when we get to them at the end. So feel free to do that.
Yeah, well, thank you, and we'll move forward here. I just want to make sure that everybody's following along and on that. So the next area that we're looking at, as Sophia said, is West Broadway and the availability or the potential availability of 21st to help the alignment. So the reason behind this section, as we look at it from basically from Washington Avenue. So as we look at the diagram in front of us, it kind of shows how traffic operations could work. So either coming from Lyndale Avenue, or if we're coming over from the east side of 94, how traffic would run. So that the Lyndale's the purple, the red that comes in at Lyndale Avenue onto West Broadway is how we get there. And then the arrows show their direction of traffic travel. So the black line and black arrows indicates vehicular traffic, and the blue arrows and alignment shows the light rail operations there. So in this option, option A, looking at is kind of the basis of what we're looking at. This option shows center running light rail and 2 lanes of traffic on West Broadway. Also, as we look at it, there's some on the bottom of the page here are some depictions, some glimpses we call them, or some perspective drawings of how it looks today on the left-hand side on West Broadway and how it would look and how light rail would fit in there. So light rail would be center running with the guideway in the middle, a lane of traffic on either side. We know that when we get to a signalized intersection, we need to have, when we have an intersection, when there's a track crossing, we need to have a signal there. And when there's a signalized intersection, we know that we need to accommodate for those left-hand turns, so they have a place to stage and wait for the red arrow to make that turn in there. On this option here, there is no on-street parking within the build condition on this. So this obviously on A is the basis again, and because we're squeezing everything in there that is impactful to quite a few of the properties and the buildings along West Broadway. So we looked at, are there other options that we can do to, maybe reduce the pressure on West Broadway and look at how we can handle that. So option B here, this is shows the side running light rail on West Broadway. So we keep all of what light rail on West Broadway, and then split the traffic with 1 lane on West Broadway and then 2 lanes on 21st Avenue. So those show the eastbound traffic on West Broadway, that one lane on the bottom in the concept with the light rail kind of side running through there. And then on the right-hand side is the how 21st would look with 2 lanes of traffic going westbound in this area. The next option C, that we looked at or evaluating here is shows the side running light rail, shows light rail and traffic split between West Broadway and 21st Avenue. So we jumped to D. Can we go back to C? Thank you. So 2 lanes of traffic down on West Broadway with the light rail on the side running, and then on 21st we would have one direction of light rail with one direction of travel of traffic on 21st, splitting this up. So obviously we're keeping 2 lanes of traffic on West Broadway, one way of traffic on 21st, and then we were splitting that light rail operation by roughly a block. The fourth option out there is option D. So a lot of options here, but option D, what it does is shows all of light rail on 21st Avenue and keeping West Broadway in similar condition to what it is today. Really the light rail is up on 21st and West Broadway remains with the traffic on it right here. So that's the left-hand perspective that's seen here. On the right-hand side shows 21st as more of a transit way, so it'd be dedicated for light rail, pedestrians, bikes in this area. And then you can kind of see on the right-hand side of that right drawing, we know that we need to keep connections for the neighborhood, for their alleys, for access for fire and for vehicles and trash pickup and things like that. So to continue that connectivity between roads or alleys in that area. So a lot of information. There are 4 different options out there, and kind of lay out how we evaluated each one of these options as they go forward. And one of them, if each one of these has some kind of right-of-way impact, depending on what it is, option A would have a lot of right-of-way impacts to a lot of the businesses in this area. And really it's because this section of West Broadway, basically between Lyndale and Irving, most of the buildings there really go right up to the right-of-way lines. They're right up against the back of the sidewalk, so there's not a lot of space behind it, and that's one of the things that we're looking at and evaluating. So as you go through and look at these, each one of these has maybe their pluses and minuses in each one of these different categories, but as we start to look at them, that option C really has a lot of issues by splitting traffic, by splitting the light rail and separating it out. So maybe it doesn't have quite the benefits, or maybe more impacts than some of the other options. And similar with B, has really a good transit effectiveness, but maybe some negatives on the other side. So as we look at those scales, that A and D are starting to rise up as more of the potential options that to consider as we move into our environmental phase. So a lot of information, again, a lot of, I raced over a lot of this technical detail, and this is a good chance for folks, if I confused you, let's back up and go look at it. If you have some questions specifically, if you maybe have questions or disagreement with maybe some of the evaluations, that this is a great time for that discussion.
And as folks are thinking, we have some very specific questions for all of you all that have joined us today. Basically, we want to know, of what was shown today, what you prefer and why. Are we missing anything? And what else do you want us to know? And so we're going to ask you a version of these questions live right now. So for a second, I thought I stopped sharing, but I'm still sharing. If folks want to get out their phones or open another tab on your browser, however you're accessing the information today, kind of a second screen, go to menti.com. It's a menti.com. And as soon as you get there, it'll just say enter this code, and it's 18010043, and you'll just hit submit. And it'll start with a prompt that'll appear on all of our screen right now. So I'm going to put these in chat for everybody, and then I'm going to stop sharing. And we'll pull up the poll now. So menti.com is where you'll go, and the code is 18010043. Give everybody a second to do that. And you can kind of indicate that you're here. And if people come on. Seeing that there's a couple folks there. It is, I think it is working. If any questions about accessing it, but it seems that you can also, if you want to kind of see the maps that Nick had up kind of all at the same time, if you're on our Blue Line website, so bluelineext.org, kind of scroll, that main page has interactive maps, so you can kind of look at all the options at the same time. So with that, I say go ahead and launch the poll, Kale. So on your screens, it should give you the ability to state your preference.
And I think as we're taking the poll here too, I want to, what Sophia just mentioned on our project website, bluelineext.org. Wonderful site. You know, the information that we put together, we've tried to include it on that website. So if you dig through there, you can pull up and look at some of the engineering drawings that are, you know, they're only at about a 5%, but you can kind of see how things would fit within the alignments that are evaluating out there. There is a interactive map on there, public coordinate. If you click on that map and go in there, it has some of the glimpses, some of the perspectives along the alignment that is shown. It has those alignments in there. It gives you an opportunity to comment on it, and folks can have a discussion back and forth on their comments, and so it's really a good place for you to leave your comments and for us to see see them, look at them, evaluate them. It gives us feedback and things that we can consider and work with on for our project team. So the input that we get from these meetings, from the website, from this virtual thing is something that helps us inform as we move forward. So we are listening. We do appreciate your input, good, bad, or indifferent, but it's helpful for us as we move forward.
Okay, I'll ask us to move on to the next question. In your own, in your tab, you can go back and forth, but only the thing that's on the screen right now will show. So the next question is why? Why did you select the option you did? You know, kind of short answer. I give people a second see if I can see the, and if you don't see this on your phone, it should automatically prompt, but you can kind of touch it and it does kind of moves. If you're on a different screen than the presenter, it kind of lets you know. So a couple answers going in.
And as we're letting some of these come in too, I'll make a pitch for, we are meeting in person again next week. Those are posted up here on the in the presentation, but it's also a good opportunity to come in. We will have materials out there, some roll plots where folks can see the drawings. We'll have staff there that can kind of talk through how things would work and operate. And it's a good interactive way to come in and talk directly with project staff and give your input also and see things in person.
And as a reminder, you can always do this online as well later. Okay. It's almost everybody giving the Y that gave a preference. So I think we'll move on to the next question. If you're still typing, we'll still receive that information. So don't worry. It just won't appear on the screen. The next is which option we're going now to, instead of target field to West Broadway, we're on West Broadway, and it's the configuration of how we use, if we use, how we use 21st. So it's option A, or the first option, both, to kind of the two splits of either the roadway or light rail, and then the use of 21st itself. We got, I think, 7 responses to the first answer, so I'll give it one more second, and we'll move on to the Y. Okay, let's launch the Y. So as Nick walked through those options, and you had kind of the visualizations of how it could, what stood out to you. You for that response. And also, I know sometimes you need to think about it more. So if you think of things you want us to consider later, please do so. Okay, as people are entering those, as Nick said, we have 2 in-person meetings next week. So on the 28th, Wednesday the 28th, from 5 to 7, we'll be at the Franklin Middle School. And then on Wednesday, the 29th, we'll be at Sanctuary Covenant Church. So Franklin Middle School really kind of focusing on a little bit of that target field to West Broadway, and the Sanctuary Covenant Church meeting really focusing on 21st versus West Broadway. We also have one more virtual meeting on Wednesday, the 28th, from noon to 1:30. And Again, you can provide comment online through the end of the month, and also reach out to your community outreach coordinators at any time to talk more about these options. Thank you, everybody, for providing that your reasons why.
Yes, we do appreciate that.
Yeah. Let's move to the next. So Nick pulled up, kind of how we're evaluating things. And, you can kind of answer, did we miss anything? Or if there's anything that's important to you that we consider, this would be a good moment to put it up. So thinking of a future time when we're at a point of making a decision. If you were to evaluate how we made our decision, what would you have wanted us to include or have known about in your community? I know this can kind of be a big question that takes a little bit of time to answer. So not as quick poll. Would also love to hear from folks whether the longer questions were nice for this meeting or no, because we could stick to quick polls in the future as well. Just kind of testing stuff out. We've had a few community virtual meetings where folks are like, well, we want to provide feedback. We don't really have questions. And so we thought that this would be a great way to allow for some of that back and forth. I'm getting some really good feedback coming in. I always love to hear people's complex thinking for us to consider. Really appreciate that. And we're looking at things about access and proximity to folks that really want stops close to them. Thinking about what needs the most investment. Awesome. And last but not least, we'll go to our last question. Again, if you're still typing, the answer won't disappear. We'll still receive it. Anything else that you would like us to know? And that's kind of a broad one, right? So it's like, but anything you want to share with us?
So as we're getting the answers there too, I just appreciate folks jumping on here. Want to remind you we're very early in the process here, so right now the engineering is what's needed to inform the environmental work that's going to be taking place here over the next year. And we're very early in design, so a lot of our designs, although they may look very developed, if you look closely at them, there's not a lot of detail to them. We don't show specific sidewalk widths where bike trails would be. We're not showing a lot of green space or boulevard space like that right now. We need to kind of make sure that we know what the design is going to be, and then we start filling it in. So it's kind of like building up a painting or something. We've got to start with the beginning and start working our way up. But this is the key part to start getting input so we can start building that. And similarly, as we start, fine tuning or verifying where station locations will be, then we'll start looking at how we could get those safe, inviting, accessible spaces to that station. How we get the peds and bikes and the users to that station that are going to be on the light rail, and to how they're getting to their destinations.
Okay. I think right now we can just leave this up right for a minute of, is there anything else you want us to know? But just kind of move into the general questions that folks have. So 2 ways to ask questions or give us additional feedback. You can just start typing into chat, or if you go to your reactions tab, there is a raise hand feature, and you can raise your hand and we will call on you. Quiet group tonight. We've had the last few of these. We've almost gone overtime answering questions. So it is what it is. Well, in a way that kind of concludes. Oh, Candy, go ahead.
I was waiting for that, Candy. I know you had questions.
Hey, Nick. Sophie. Yes, of course, I have lots of questions. I don't know what's going on with this group and why they're being so quiet, but maybe after I do my questions or say whatever I have to say, they'll like chime in. So of course I have a few questions. And so like before, we have these different options. So if we vote, is it going to be like on a curve, the voting process? And everybody will look at all the different options from everybody's different perspectives. And then when will you guys complete the voting on the options?
So Candy, the voting's not necessarily meant to get like a full representation of all of everyone. It just gives us a sense of what people are preferring and why. And that why part is really important to us in our decision making. So ultimately when we make a choice between these options, it'll be based on kind of how they rate, how they rank, all the factors that we need to consider. And we want to make sure that we're evaluating what's important to the community as well. For example, the comment up here is, really you should have light rail where you can have bikeways and easy pedestrian access and things like that. And so, that's something that we can take and, look at, is there a difference between these options and what's accessible via bike and ped? Is there options to provide things for bikes and pedestrians, and that can be part of what we consider. So that's really what we're trying to get to the root of, to kind of include it. I hope that helps.
It does. And then of course, I got a couple more questions.
The floor is yours. No one else is asking yet.
I know, that's amazing. So I like the option on Lyndale with the 2-way traffic so that we can drive down West Broadway. And then my other question is, like, if we have to turn either left or right, is that an option? Or are you gonna like block like certain areas in the stationary stops? That's why I asked about stationary stops, because before, when it was going to go down Olson, the stationary stop would have blocked Bryant, and that wasn't good because as a renter, you have to get across Bryant to the leasing office. So if it goes down West Broadway, some popular destinations, are we going to still be able to turn?
Yeah, I think I can start approaching that, Candy. So I think as we've evaluated West Broadway, pretty much every signalized intersection that's signalized today would remain signalized. So that means that you would have that full access through those intersections. The left turns through there. So if it's signalized today, our recommendation would be to keep it signalized in that location. So, does that answer your question there, Candy, on that option?
Yes, sir. That does. Really? Nobody has any other questions? That's amazing.
Yeah, the last mini that we've done, it's been a lot of questions. So, but sometimes I think you have quieter nights. Partly, it's really beautiful outside, so the weather is competing with us, perhaps.
Okay, so then I got another question. So after we get all this community input, and is it going to be a draft report, environmental impact, that has to get approved?
Yes. So I think to answer this right now, these options that we're bringing forward right now, if there's not a lot of support for it in the community, or if there is a lot of support for an option in the community, we'll make a recommendation to our corridor management committee to continue forward into our environmental work with it. So then what we start with is the draft environmental. It's a supplemental draft environmental impact statement that this will go into. So then that's what we'll evaluate all the potential impacts along the alignment and what those mitigations could be for those impacts out there. And so that's probably going to take us through into next year, Candy, is with that work. And then that will then turn into a final environmental impact statement.
Okay.
So a little additional framing too is that when we seek municipal consent, we kind of mentioned that kind of broadly, but it's where we take a package of designs, usually about 30%. So most of the details to the cities. That's the point at which we really need to know kind of everything, like exactly where the track is, exactly where our stations are. Those major details. So we're going to use our environmental documents to help us analyze the options, advance our design, and then when we get to that point, we'll be kind of recommending before that what we're going to do.
Okay. And then do you release a budget of how much is it going to cost to do all that?
We'll have a preliminary budget.
Too.
Yeah, right around that municipal consent, 30% design is where we start pulling together a budget for the project, and as Sophia said, that starts defining where our scope is going to be, where what the budget for the project will be, and our schedule timeline.
Cool.
So a lot of steps and a lot of conversations along the way. I really wanted to come out to the community right now because as we think about kind of refining what we look at over the next multiple months, really wanted to give everybody the chance to weigh in on that decision making so that we can make sure that we're stepping forward together and considering all the things, like I said, that the community wants us to consider as we kind of continue to advance this project. Okay. Well, because we have a quieter group tonight, I just want to thank everybody for coming out and giving us your feedback. You know where to find us. BlueLineEXT.org has all of this information available to you. It also has the contact information for your outreach coordinator. Ms. Panuvu is online right now listening in. and she's available to you to answer questions, come out to your events, talk more, whatever it might be. So that's it, folks. Thanks for spending your evening with us.
By the way, it's good to see both of you guys again.
You too, Kathy. Thanks for the questions.
Yeah, always good to see you,
Our
Candy.
Candy. Well, thank you, everybody.